St. Louis's Union Station was once one of the busiest train stations in the country and in the world. But passengers and much of its life left the station nearly 4 decades ago. Now, though, it's been reborn. So can this latest redevelopment succeed where others have failed? Is Union Station still central to St. Louis? We're on location to find out, so stay tuned. Stay Tuned brings together local experts, journalists, civic leaders, and regular people to have tough conversations for a stronger St. Louis. Add your voice to our conversation, and you're at the table as we stay on top of current events and go deeper, bringing more light and less heat to the issues that matter. From the 9 network of public media in Grand Center, this is Stay Tuned. Michael Allen, architectural historian, also a professor at WashU, and still with the Preservation Research Office. Thanks for being here. Always fun to talk to you.
It's good to be here on such a beautiful December day.
And in a beautiful building. Give us some context here. Maybe let's start with the history, since that's your specialty. Was there a time when this building was maybe cherished a little more than it is now in St. Louis?
Yeah, I mean, at the time when this was the city's front door, in an era before road transportation, before private cars, before jet airliners, this was the point of arrival and departure for thousands of St. Louisans and their guests.
1894?
1894 through 1978, when the last Amtrak clattered out of here.
Before we talk about 78, tell us a little bit about its position in the world or in the country when it first opened up and through its kind of heyday.
Right. When this, when Union Station was first envisioned by the Terminal Railroad Association, their architectural competition, they went out and invited 12 firms from around the country, top designers, Chicago, New York, and St. Louis, to compete. And 4 firms rejected participation because the fee was too low. But they regretted that. The winners, Lincoln Cameron, came up with this Romanesque design that became not only an icon of the role of St. Louis, but an icon of rail transportation. And this architectural style, with the repeated arches, the towers, would influence railroad station design for the next 20 years.
And then socially, what was its role? Millions of people were coming through here every year, right?
Millions came here. There were high-end restaurants, a hotel, newsstands and shops. A lot of the things that the later mall would try to attempt to do in the 1980s had already been happening here, but they were happening here because there was circulation 24/7. People had to pass through these corridors in this great hall.
So you said 1978, Amtrak pulled out for the last time. What happened then?
After that, it sat empty. About the only thing of note that happened here in the late 70s was John Carpenter shooting the wrestling scene from Escape from New York here, with Isaac Hayes opening this bloody match in the middle of the Grand Hall.
They sent in their best man. And when we roll down the 69th Street Bridge tomorrow on our way to freedom, we're going to have their best man leading the way from the neck up.
They could do that because literally nothing was going on here?
Nothing was happening here. There was a developer from Salt Lake City named Wally Wright who had created a project called Trolley Square based on an old station in Salt Lake City. And it was very successful, and he thought he could pull it off here in St. Louis. But once Amtrak left, he quickly ended up in default. He had no tenants, no income, and sold his development rights to a company in New York. That ultimately sold their development rights to the Rouse Company that came up with the Festival Marketplace mall concept. I should say, along the way, every possible idea for Union Station was proposed in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, leading up to the mall idea, from convention center to airport to the site of the Museum of Transportation at one point, which would have made a lot of sense, although probably the cost of operations Would have been a staggering bill.
I can still remember as a kid seeing them, I guess it was the fudgery back then, making the chocolate and kind of the mall concept. How successful was that, and why did it ultimately not work?
Well, I think it failed because it tried to create this epitome experience for downtown St. Louis. This experience was supposed to stand in for coming to St. Louis, the drama of Union Station, the beauty of the city, the symbol of its resurgence. I think that approach was very contrived. I mean, the success of Union Station was based on, a function that drove a lot of its activities. People had to come and go here. We see some of that going on today with this hotel and this new reworking of it. But the mall, it was a gimmick, and it lasted briefly, as those kinds of projects really do. It was only as good as the first wave of tenants. As soon as they started closing up, people lost interest in it. St. Louis also wasn't positioned the same way in the region. In the 1980s, more people every day were leaving the city than coming back. There wasn't this excitement and enthusiasm for remaking the center of the city. Frankly, downtown was dying, and a lot of things were still on the way that would drive more nails into downtown's proverbial coffin. A lot of corporations were leaving in the 80s, culminating with Southwestern Bell moving to Texas in 1993. After that, I think the dark age passed, and with historic tax credits and this return to the city movement we see in the 1990s and 2000s, downtown's in a better place. Union Station finds its fortunes, I think, a little stronger because there now is more circulation in downtown. More people are coming here not to get fudge or gawk at the festival mall, but because there's a lot of other things to do around here. Union Station opened in 1985, St. Louis Center opened the same year, but 5 years later the Galleria would open, and then West County Mall would get revamped, and Chesterfield Mall would get revamped, and so there was still a lot of suspicion about leaving your car on the street downtown or coming to St. Louis Center or Union Station. Safety was a big issue.
As a preservationist, as a historian, tell us the importance of preserving this building.
Oh, this building is indelibly part of St. Louis's architectural heritage. Not just the head house and its Romanesque design, but this massive train shed with its, I think it's 11 acres, and it's a work of engineering art that had been unparalleled in the United States. Only one row of columns down the center, all column-free spans between the center and the outside, allowing for all those tracks to back in. It's a magnificent structure, and it showed the world, that also that a functional steel structure like that could be beautiful, could actually be something attractive. One thing about Union Station that's interesting is never was it seriously considered for demolition. There's always been a fondness for Union Station. The old post office, the Wainwright building, both went through battles where they were almost torn down. Every plan for Union Station that was proposed would have saved at least the head house, the terminal building, because people just love the architecture and the look.
Are you optimistic about this latest iteration of redevelopment? Or will we have the same conversation in 20 years?
We might. I'm optimistic with the caveat that we probably will have a conversation about this 20, 30, 40 years. I think these new uses are relying on a network of economic activities that are bigger than just one site. Like downtown and the geography around it is healthier, and more investment is landing collectively. That gives us a stronger context. That didn't happen in 1985. But I think the nature of investment, of capital, money likes new things. And even if this use continues, it'll decline a little bit. It'll lose the luster, and someone will want to put more money into it again, even if it's to keep it in the same use or to do something else with it. There's no building that cannot avoid the cycle of maintenance and changing economy. So that's why preservation isn't just about doing it once. It's about long-term sort of education about the value of a building like this, so that it doesn't matter what it becomes. The love for this building, the appreciation for this architecture is constant.
I thank you for your time. That was awesome. I think the thing that was most fascinating that you said was that of all the plans, demolition was never one for this building.
Isn't it fascinating?
Yeah, it's good. Michael Allen, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Casey.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Barb Geisman, thank you for being here. You're the former executive director for development for the city of St. Louis.
That's correct.
But I would love your insights on where this building sits in the city. I don't mean physically. Where, you know, the story I've heard is that the first time it was redeveloped, the developer was stuck here during a snowstorm and just kind of happened to walk through and found this undiscovered gem almost. Makes it sound like maybe we didn't appreciate it as much at one time. How do we look at it now?
Well, I think back then, one of my friends from architecture school decided to make it his life's mission to sit in the basement and find a developer for the place. So I went to visit him lots of times in the early 80s when basically it had no heat, you know, there were all sorts of vermin running around, but you could still tell it had a great amount of potential. And we climbed up to the clock tower top and across the top of this vault, and it was an amazing place. So I think, like you said, the Rouses came along and decided that this building had the kind of potential that they were developing all over the country to celebrate specific historic architecture in a variety of places and make it into an attraction that the people, not only locally, but nationally, could appreciate.
How would you describe development momentum in St. Louis right now?
I think development momentum in St. Louis is recovering from the credit crisis of 2008, 2009, and largely because of this new interest among the younger generations, developers are more interested in taking what the city has to offer location-wise, historic architecture-wise, diversity-wise, and making it into something that will not only be profitable for the developers, but will also be profitable for the city because it will make the city a better place to live and work, will generate more tax revenue, and will build the kind of momentum that we need to keep doing development, because we don't want just one project. We want a series of projects that build on each other to make the city a great place.
Are you optimistic about this latest redevelopment?
I am very optimistic. The O'Laughlins getting control of this property is the best thing that could have happened to it. They have a vision, they have the expertise and the financial resources to bring that vision to reality, and it's just wonderful to listen to them talk about the kinds of things that they want to do with the place.
Of course, they're not in the charity business. They probably have some beyond back of the envelope projections of how they'll make this profitable.
Sure, but there's a lot of risk associated with that too. But I think if the developer has a vision and believes in the vision, and has the resources to carry it out, which I think they do, they can make Union Station a success. This building is wonderful and unique, and the fact that the city was able to save it all these years in its various incarnations really is important, and a credit to the city's cooperation with developers and the city's determination to make this building and this whole complex a success.
Barb Geisman, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. Todd Hodeling, Vice President of Marketing, Lodging, Hospitality, and Management, LHM, a local company. You guys are the ones that are doing this. This is a homegrown project.
Yeah, right here in St. Louis. Yep.
You're kind of emotionally invested in this, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. You know, a lot of our development, everything is focused on St. Louis. We have 17 properties in the area, hotels, and we're in St. Louis right now. So everything we do is in improving St. Louis and bringing travelers to St. Louis and creating that experience.
Is there a pride, or what is the pride level like to own Union Station?
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's great. You walk through here. I really appreciate being able to walk through here and be a part of this, and be a part of this revitalization of not only Union Station, but just the downtown environment right now, just all the great things we have going on, and to continue to develop that and grow that and make us, you know, a popular city for the right attractions.
How often do people ask you, how are you going to make this work this time, when it didn't really work or it kind of at least fizzled out after the last redo of Union Station?
Well, I think, we're trying to make it a family destination again. Bring it back to that glory back in the day when it was the largest train station in the world. And ensure that, families can come down here and enjoy it, whether they're local families from St. Louis or out-of-towners that might have never been to St. Louis or haven't been to St. Louis in a long time.
How different will it be from maybe the last time, if people haven't been down here since its last iteration, how different of an experience?
It's completely different. The whole mall area, we're going to renovate that. We're going to add the aquarium, which would be a large attraction for St. Louis.
We're
and much
really
needed.
getting into quick, because the aquarium idea is almost, a lot of people have floated it, pardon the pun.
We're very close. So, one of the elements would be the largest shark tank in the Midwest, and it'll be right here behind the hotel, and a great addition to the landscape. But we're really close. We have a couple developers that we're looking to partner with and figure that out. So yeah, real soon.
And then some other things, the Ferris wheel, the
Ferris
observation
wheel in the back. So just another amenity to the entire experience of making this a good family attraction.
There has been some discovery even as you remodel.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So when we added the Starbucks, what we call the market over here, behind a wall we found this large mural that was once the ticket counter, behind the ticket counter in mid-century of the 1900s, and so we put it up behind of our front desk there just to showcase it, but just really fun things that we're finding and discovering. A lot of the archways, a lot of this historical stuff that might have been hidden from years and years of renovations and refurbishments. We're uncovering it, and we want to showcase that history.
Was it in decent shape when you moved in, so to speak, or did it take a little work to?
It was in good shape, but it did take a lot of work. We did a full renovation here in the Grand Hall, and obviously the rooms all were renovated. So yeah, there's some hurdles, and being a historical building, there's some things that we have to accomplish with that, being sensitive to that.
Is there some momentum here beyond what you expected? And I'm thinking specifically of the light show that you were telling me you at first didn't know if you'd be able to make that happen.
Yeah, well, we knew we had this gorgeous Grand Hall, and just the architecture in here is gorgeous. We needed something to highlight it, that would not cover it up, but basically promote it. And the light show was something that Steve O'Loughlin and his dad talked about, and they thought they took a risk and invested in it, and it's been great. We've had a lot of great reviews. We just unveiled a new show that was a tribute to the Beatles, and I think it's one of the best shows that we have. It's about a 7-minute show, and it's gorgeous. It's really fun. It's really fun.
There's a lot of traffic here now. I think, I got to be honest, I was kind of surprised when we walked in this morning of just the activity level that's already here now.
We have a large group in today, and the midway space, which is historically where the guests would meet to greet guests getting on and off trains, we've turned that into meeting space. So that's about 60,000 square feet of convention space that we've been able to attract meetings and organizations into St. Louis that have never been to St. Louis before. So you're seeing a lot of that traffic today.
How much of your focus is on the history of this building, or maybe how much of a role of the history of this building does it play in what you do here?
You just walk through the doors and you feel different with the historic significance of this station and the time when it was a train station, and now as we bring it back and revitalize it, we bring it back and really restore it to that historical gem and make it popular for the country, if not the world.
Was it a risk for you guys to come here?
It's always a risk. Yeah, absolutely, but it's calculated. I mean, we're able to take on the ownership of the entire property, and we saw a lot of potential, and obviously we've tapped into that potential, and we're seeing the fruits of that labor now, and we anticipate we'll continue to see that for years to come.
Todd Hodeling, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Otis Williams, Executive Director, St. Louis Development Corporation. Thanks for being here. I want to get some broader perspective. First, tell me the state of development in St. Louis, because I've heard there are more construction cranes in our skies right now than maybe we've had for the last 20 or 30 years.
There are more now and more to come. We're fortunate that we have probably over $4 billion worth of construction that we think will come in over the next few years. And so beginning with the NGA, which is roughly about $1.1 billion in construction, but then just following that is just a whole host of redevelopment projects all over the city.
So when you're talking about all that's going on in St. Louis, how does Union Station fit in that larger picture?
So it fits, it's a real key part of it in the sense that we start with the interchange at Jefferson I-44, which is what we promised the NGA that we would improve. And
just right next door to here,
right
at
next
64 in Jefferson?
64 in Jefferson. As you know, it's only two ramps there. We intend to add 2 more ramps on the east side of that interchange. And so in order to do that, the Highway Department requires that we complete a access justification report. And we think that at the conclusion of that, there will be ramps and ramp systems in that area that will become excess. And so if it does, then there's land that would be available to be able to accommodate a stadium-sized structure.
Speaking specifically of soccer.
Speaking specifically of soccer.
Even without the soccer stadium, is it something you see as being more long-term, more viable than those first attempts to redevelop Union Station?
Well, yes. As we look at the redevelopment of downtown, one of our goals is to make it more dense, obviously. And as we do the improvements, moving in the central business corridor, which is essentially from Jefferson to the river, we are looking at this as one of those major opportunities. So if you go from Jefferson through where the current FBI facility is located, through Union Station, down Clark, through the new Ballpark Village, to the river. I mean, there are significant improvements that are ongoing there.
Yeah, from Cortex to Ballpark Village.
Yeah,
you've got
yes. If you go from our western boundary, coming back in, yes, the improvements in Forest Park, the improvements at the zoo, BJC with improvements, Cortex with improvements, St. Louis University. The Green Street is doing the Armory. St. Louis University is doing the hospital to the south. And we just continue on here to where we are now at Union Station.
Some people wonder if that momentum is going to reach folks that are north and south of there.
It is our intent. In fact, as we speak, there is movement going north. If you go just north of Delmar along Sarah, there's great improvement. I think if one would travel there now, you can see just the total difference that a few years have made. We're continuing to build on that momentum, and we'll continue to go north. We intend to work with the NAACP, Launch Code, MOCAN, and others as we try and go forward. We're working with Better Family Life out on Page to try and look at different configuration and initiatives that we can go there. But just as the same as going south with folks around Cherokee and Dutchtown in that area, we need to pay attention to all those neighborhoods. And so, it's our goal here to probably put together a citywide plan that would, probably go for about a year of planning with a consultant and, overseeing that process. And probably this time next year that we should be near the end of that planning process and be able to talk about what the plan for particularly economic development strategy would be for the city of St. Louis.
When's the last time we did something like that on that scale?
Well, I've been here 18 years and we haven't done it citywide since I've been here, so I don't know exactly when the last time we did. There has been a land use plan that has been put together. That was probably 2005, and a significant effort there. So we're going to build off of that. So everything that we've done thus far, we'll build off of it, but we are planning to take a serious look at the entire city and how we can foster redevelopment.
Is that an indication that things are moving at a pace that we got to stop and say, okay, how are we going to go forward because things, is that a positive sign?
That is a positive sign. We need to take advantage of this opportunity where we are moving, things are happening, and I think we can make a lot more things happen if we identify how we will get resources to get to those things, but particularly sort of have a plan on what we would like to see done in those various areas.
We've talked a little bit about at various times people seeing untapped potential in this building here in Union Station. Could the same be said for the city of St. Louis?
Well, there's always opportunity, and I think the big criticism is that folks will say that we always look for the silver bullet. And the purpose of this plan is that we'd like to look at it from a holistic point of view and be able to move forward with a plan of action that includes all of the assets that we have and all of the resources that we have and try and make things better.
And thinking about the momentum you've talked about, kind of look at 5 years down the road? What do you see for maybe not just this building of Union Station, but the area around it, downtown in general? What do you see?
Well, what we hope to have is a more walkable area, a denser environment. We are building more residential units. We hope to have more people living in downtown or in the city. And so the goal here is to make it such that people want to be here. And so our infrastructure program and all of the economic development that we are trying to generate here, hopefully there are more jobs and more desire to be here.
Otis Williams, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Executive Director of St. Louis Development Corporation. Always good to see you. And
always good to see you as well.
Always appreciate your insights. Thank you. Well, at more than 120 years old, the history of Union Station is unquestioned. And I think from what we've seen here, its story is far from finished. I'd like to thank our guests, Michael Allen, Barb Geisman, Otis Williams, and Todd Hodeling, and the crew for making this on-location shoot possible. Until next time, we hope you'll stay tuned.